to another episode of Coffee Time. I'm Matt Monroe.
I'm Jay Walla.
And today we are talking about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Every once in a while I can't get that title right. A lot of M's going on.
So, yeah, Multiverse of Madness.
Multiverse of Madness.
Mom.
And this movie is kind of hard to sum up just because this is going to be a non-spoiler review, so don't have to worry about that at all if you have not seen the movie. We're just going to be giving our non-spoiler thoughts.
I'm excited to see how this ends up.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this ends up. Because this is non-spoiler, I can't really sum up the movie. So this is how I'm going to sum up the movie. Doctor Strange is in the multiverse, and it's kind of mad.
It's kind of mad.
They got the title right.
They did get it spot on.
They got it spot on. So that's kind of what this movie is about.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself, honestly.
What were your expectations going in?
Yeah, my expectations going into this movie, as usual, it's usually Matt Monroe telling me, yo, Jay, there's this wild movie coming with a director I'm a fan of. And I'm like, all right, cool. Sam Raimi, his other stuff, funny enough, I've only seen his, superhero stuff and his non-horror movie stuff with the style of his.
We did rank all the Spider-Man movies.
We did, yep, we absolutely did. So I had this expectation of seeing his style be put into non-horror films, and now seeing it into Doctor Strange, and these trailers were all they were so cool, and they were all over the top, these cool action scenes and stuff like that that I was really into. But at the same time, I was like, this could easily be the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, especially because I'm not a big Marvel nut,
not a big Marvel fan.
I don't know the backstory, I don't know the universe that well. So I was going in with mixed emotions. I was excited to see what they had to offer, but at the same time, I was hesitant to let myself get too excited over something that might end up flopping for me.
Yeah, and you had not even seen the original Doctor Strange. Yeah. Have you seen Infinity War or Endgame?
No, neither.
And you haven't seen WandaVision. I remember just filling some quick things in for you on the way to the theater, this, and this. Luckily, this is the type of movie where I recommend watching all of those before you see this movie, but it's not required.
Right.
You'll still have a good time. But my expectations going in were I was very, very nervous because I didn't love the first Doctor Strange, although they had Scott Derrickson direct it. He was a horror director, and it did have some good scenes, but I don't know. It just didn't work. It was way too formulaic of just Marvel. I don't know. Generic bad guy. And he was played by Mads Mikkelsen. He's the best. Eventually, he left this project, and Sam Raimi came on to direct it. And that's when I was like, ooh, wait a minute. This might get good. But I was getting nervous because they've had directors like Chloe Zhao, James Gunn, and Taika Waititi's people with very unique styles, and you can always tell Marvel just tames them. They don't let them go full for what they really want to do. They give them the beat sheet, and then they hand it to the editors, and then the editors do what they want to do, and then the movie's done.
Right.
And they don't get that true creative input. And as a huge Sam Raimi fan, I was nervous that this movie was not going to have that creative input. Going into one of my pros just really quickly, it did.
It did.
This movie was a Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah.
Through and through. I'd say not actually through and through. The first 40 minutes was kind of a boring MCU movie, and then all of a sudden it just becomes a Sam Raimi movie.
That seems to be the theme of 2022. Just the terrible first hour, and then we're going from there.
Yeah. Same with No Way Home. It was the same thing. It's we have to get started. It's kind of slow. Yep, now we're going for it.
Now we're going.
Do you have any positives quickly? I'm sure we can talk a lot more about the style as it comes in because they just let him go.
I honestly, I feel the same way with you. I think it's just funny that we watched Evil Dead 2 after Doctor Strange, and I think seeing his style there just really also hit home.
I knew that was going to help.
How much of it he was actually able to go with. I still think Disney had their hand in this a little bit, but at the end of the day, that's kind of going to happen. I can't really expect that to just let them go full loose.
Well, Marvel has to have certain things happen in movies.
Yeah.
They have to have. They hand the directors and everyone beat sheets, and it's you have to follow these.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because they're trying to make this whole cinematic timeline and universe that makes sense.
And credit to Sam Raimi for being able to follow that beat sheet. I don't know how close to a T he did it, but it seems like he did a good job and being able to do it in a style he felt comfortable with and a style that felt like his movie. I give him a lot of credit for that. That's pretty difficult to do, I think. But
no, definitely. And honestly, another one of my fears going into this movie, and what I think was a positive, was all the cameos that were rumored.
Oh, yeah.
I was sitting here, I think, before an episode, and I was like, I know Ben Affleck's Daredevil's in this movie. And I honestly knew he wasn't. It just would have been funny to see what universes we were going to go to.
Yeah.
Because if Marvel made Andrew Garfield to Tobey Maguire's timeline canon, then maybe Daredevil's timeline's canon. Maybe they would go to Deadpool's universe. I really thought Deadpool would be in this movie.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna have someone bring in Deadpool, I feel like it should be Sam Raimi.
Yeah.
In a horror Marvel movie, like it just would have fit a little bit more, and they could have made him a little bit darker as he is. I think Disney did say they might keep with a rated R rating for him.
Oh, interesting.
Which we can hope, but getting off topic a little bit.
Yeah. It is the multiverse of madness.
It is the multiverse of madness.
There's
but,
a lot of characters going on.
Like, keep your expectations down with the cameos. There's not that many. They're not that long. The ones that are there are awesome. They're awesome. Yeah. I really enjoyed all of them. There's one that, like, they keep spoiling. Oh, there's two they keep spoiling in the trailers, which I won't say in case you've just been staying away from the trailers as well, which is kind of lame. Because like it would have been fun to see, but the cameos that are there, and specifically one that was just awesome. So
yeah, no, honestly, I thought all the cameos were just they were fun to see. I think it was a cool little scene they did. But I agree. There was anything that felt like it was too overchanging for the whole course of the movie.
Definitely. I as we're talking about it, I'm just trying to like figure out the things to say because we can't spoil this movie.
Yeah.
No, like even the villain they keep out of the trailers, the main plot points they keep out of the trailers. Yeah. Like there's nothing really to talk about going into it.
But I think, I guess one overarching thing, a lot of the action scenes, the way they handle the high like intensity moments, just because it is a Doctor Strange movie and a lot of the mind kind of goes into this, the way they handle action scenes and the other optical illusions they sort of do with the characters. I won't say which scene specifically, but the one with where they're trapping each other in, like these characters are having a battle and they're trapping each other.
I think I know the fight you're talking about. I feel like we can say a little bit
with the water and the ice and everything.
I was talking about a different fight. I'll bring up my fight after.
I think there's so many memorable fights.
The standout fight for me was the music fight.
The music fight. Okay.
The music fight was the standout for me. There's a point where they're basically battling with music.
Right.
And it's awesome.
Yeah. No, every fight they do, I think, has this cool little gimmick that it might feel tacky in a way of like a superhero does, but I think in a good way. I don't think any of them felt like it was too cheesy or just felt like out of place. I think they all felt like they fit the style of the movie.
Cheesy is definitely something to bring up with the Sam Raimi movie, and I would say this is one of the cheesiest MCU movies. Dialogue, even some of the performances every once in a while feels a little campy, which I think's all fun and fits Sam Raimi's style. Yeah. But I even did notice our audience didn't love it sometimes.
Yeah.
So they really let Sam Raimi get kind of niche with it, which I was not expecting Disney and or Marvel to let anybody do.
Yeah.
Because like even the soundtrack, there were certain bits where you heard that heavy metal guitar come in. And you're like, this is a Sam Raimi movie. Oh my God, why did they let him do this? Like our audience would start laughing and all this stuff, even making it as terrifying as they did and as horror as they did. It like this movie might have freaked me out if I saw this back when I had first seen Iron Man when I was like 9 years old.
That's a good point to bring up.
And like, these are kids' movies, but this genuinely would have scared me.
Yeah, no, there was a scene in the movie where it was entirely like just made out to be a horror scene, like slasher, woman in her house, like
I got such a smile on that scene. Just I was getting so excited because I really didn't expect Marvel to do it, and these were the standout scenes.
That scene was one where it just felt like he was totally unhinged, just able to do like a full out horror scene where it didn't even feel like a horror scene, but fit into a Marvel style or something. It just felt like he was able to just make a horror scene out of characters that were already made, but it didn't feel like it was something he was trying to, appeal to a director or like a higher up or something that he was going for.
And going back a little bit to that heavy metal guitar and the soundtrack to this movie is one of MCU's best. And the MCU has terrible soundtracks. I don't know, they just never are that, they don't stand out. I never leave the movie humming the soundtrack. Maybe only Avengers Endgame. But that's just because they play the Avengers theme in this epic moment. It's hard to forget. But Sam Raimi working with Danny Elfman again like he did with the 3 Spider-Man movies, and it shows. Danny Elfman's such a good composer, and the soundtrack for this movie is awesome.
It is. It was, like you said, it's the one that stands out pretty prominently to me. I wouldn't know much about the other MCU soundtracks, but this one, like the guitar riffs and all these things that just feel like they wouldn't normally do.
Do you remember the No Way Home soundtrack?
No, absolutely not.
Right. Do you have any memory of it?
Not really. No. I'm sure if I think long and hard, I might think of something, but I really can't think of anything right now. But the Batman soundtrack, just because the titles. But we can't get into Batman right now. We can't get into
Batman. And then my big final positive I have for this movie is the ending and how they handle defeating the villain. Okay. This is the most adult the MCU has been, much like I was saying with No Way Home. And even No Way Home, I don't think got to this level of sophisticated in some sense, where it isn't some just big like beefed out characters who are now stronger, punching the crap out of each other, and whoever wins wins. It's the bad guy realizes what they've been doing,
Right.
and come to these realizations and realize they've turned evil.
Yeah.
And seeing that play out, and they played it, I think, great. It's really emotional.
I think the relationship between Doctor Strange and the main antagonist of the movie was handled really well. I think the thing about the ending that is kind of shifting into a little bit of a negative, but staying on this topic, the character, I don't know if I should say her name or not, the kid, the child, the little girl.
Yes. I was going to bring her up quickly.
America Chavez.
Yeah,
right?
America Chavez.
I think I didn't like a lot of the way they handled her. It seemed like a lot of the parts with her were being very like foreshadowed, but in a way that I didn't feel like it was too like creative to me, where it just kind of felt like they were kind of throwing scenes at me. And the way they handled her wasn't my favorite. A lot of her scenes with her, I thought she was a fine character. I just think the way they handled her relationship with everything was pretty cut and dry and bare bones, where it didn't feel like it was very inspired as much as the other scenes of the movie.
I would agree. I definitely took me a second to get behind her character, but by the end I did like her.
Right, okay.
Like she works in the MCU, and I'm excited to see what they're gonna do with her moving forward. Just because her powers are awesome. I think so. Like it always leads to interesting stuff.
Right.
All right. I guess you ready to move on to the cons? You have any more negatives or any more positives that stand out?
Well, I do have the one character that I want to say, but I don't think I should spoil it. So I guess there's some cool characters, there's some cool designs, cool scenes with colors and everything. That I think they handled really
Okay,
well.
it took me a second to realize what you were talking about. Yes.
Yeah. Visually, this movie I think is really well done.
Yeah, and again, we just can't talk about a lot of the things we love because they're not in the marketing. They're really trying to keep a lot of this a secret, and I really thought that was because of No Way Home and the events of No Way Home, but honestly, they talk about No Way Home in one scene in this movie, and it's such a reshoot. It's such a reshoot. It's so obvious for some reason. Well, because this movie was actually supposed to come out before No Way Home.
Really?
Yeah. And then they had to flip them.
Oh.
So I'm sure they reshot it just to add that one thing.
Okay.
Just to be like, oh, it's after No Way Home.
There you go. Now you guys
Now you know the
timeline
timeline.
makes sense for us.
Which I mean, like, I kind of appreciate sometimes
Right.
with these movies. But moving on to the cons, I mean, the biggest standouts, like the first 40, 50 minutes.
Yeah.
It is so formulaic MCU. There's barely any Sam Raimi style. There's one good kill. Quickly, I forgot to write this down. Going back to the positives, best kills in the MCU, without a doubt. Most brutal, most bloody. They're awesome.
They're really cool.
They're really cool. But the first 40 minutes, you only get like one good, nasty one. And then other than that, it's just so tamed.
I remember during the first, I don't even know how long the movie was, but you looked over at me in the theater, you're like, man, I really hope the rest of this movie gets better.
Well, yeah, because I'd heard that it just drops off to a Sam Raimi movie at some point. So it started to feel like we were doing that, and I leaned over. I was like, "Please get better. Please not have critics lie to me and like it's a Sam Raimi movie after this one. It's just still an MCU movie."
The formulaic thing you said was something that I felt. I know everyone we watched it with, including you, and I guess people online as well, were talking about how the beginning was like so much worse, then it moves on to something better. I guess something maybe because I wasn't as familiar with Sam Raimi as much as you are, not as big of a Sam Raimi nut. But the movie felt like it was like they had sprinkled some bad scenes here and there that felt very formulaic, and then the rest of it just felt like it was, you know, an inspired kind of horror Marvel superhero movie.
Right.
But the scenes where it felt so formulaic, it was like the same kind of skeletal structure for a couple of scenes in a row, where it was like, you know, in-depth conversation, move the plot forward, joke. In-depth conversation, move the plot forward, joke. And then keep repeating that a couple
now you're
times.
gonna know most of my issues with MCU movies nowadays. It's just like they've leaned so far into the comedy. It's not fun to watch anymore because nothing's serious.
Exactly.
Like you watch it and you're like, oh man, are there any stakes? No.
We're talking about the madness of the multiverse here.
Yeah,
and we got someone cracking some knock-knock jokes in the background, you know? I'm waiting for some... It's like serious dialogue moving on to a joke, and then it's hard to take anything prior as seriously, especially now that you're expecting a joke. It's like, is this supposed to be an actual scene, or is this like another joke scene? I can't really tell what's going on here. They never fit a style.
It's true. And like, I would say a lot of the jokes in this movie do land. There's one, I can't remember exactly what it is, but Doctor Strange is talking to one of the cameos that I don't want to talk about, and he says a line, and it just cracked me up. But it was one of the funnier lines I'd ever heard in an MCU movie. It was so ridiculous. But do you have a negative you want to point out that's not the first 40 minutes? Or maybe it could be something in there.
Honestly, there isn't much. Like I said, the first 40 minutes, the issues I had with it were sprinkled throughout the movie, and most of it was the sort of like structure that they kept repeating, and it felt like some of the plot points that actually now that I mentioned it, some of the plot points throughout the big scope of the movie with America Chavez just felt like they were going for foreshadowing, but it felt more of like I was now just waiting for this thing to happen because they paint it out in the beginning of the movie and it's like, you know, you're just gonna affect the plot somehow. So waiting for that to happen. That anticipation would sometimes take me out, but it was mostly during those scenes where they felt less inspired than the other ones. And that, I think the foreshadowing could have been done a little better with that to make it seem more, you know, mysterious and more mad multiversy.
Definitely. I'd say my other just complaint with this movie is I get wanting to stay comic accurate, but I would have switched America Chavez's name. The amount of times Doctor Strange kept going, we have to save America.
You have to save
America's in trouble. And like, I was just like, it's so hard to take this seriously at all. And my favorite part was my friend who was sitting next to me afterwards.
Yeah.
The movie was over, he looked over at me and went, every time they said America, I felt like they were talking to me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's
like,
so weird sounding.
Yeah, it feels like a call to action that it's like, is this like some weird socioeconomic climate movie or something? Or is this?
And then you're like, oh yeah, the character's name's America.
Yeah.
Like, reading it in a comic, I'm sure it fits and it's fine and it works. But just hearing it out loud, I mean, every time it came up, our audience was chuckling a little bit.
Yeah, no, it always felt like a call to even calling your Chavez, I think, would have been fine. I was waiting for them to switch, but they never did.
Yeah,
really
like
awkward.
anything. Like, they kept calling her America.
Yeah, that's something I wish they changed in the dialogue.
It's just bizarre.
I think the dialogue, for the most part, I'm mentioning it was good. There, like I said, the formulaic scenes, the dialogue started to get a little uninspired. I think is the best word I can think of, where it's just very cut and dry, you know. It's what you'd expect out of a movie, like from an MCU movie or something like I've seen. But America.
I would agree. I would agree with that. How many multiverses of madness do you give this movie out of 10 multiverses of madness?
How many multiverses of madness? Okay, honestly, this movie, it's so
I know
tough.
this is a tough ranking because I think, and again, I hate that, like, we just really can't talk about go into so much detail about the things we loved, but I really did like this movie a lot, and I think I liked it more than the rating I'm gonna give it.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact they really let it be a Sam Raimi movie, but it's my rating, so like maybe I should just give it the one I feel.
Give it whatever you want.
Yeah, keep it whatever I feel. I'm personally gonna give this movie, I'm gonna give it 7 multiverses out of madness.
That's pretty close to where I was thinking. The thing is, my preface really quick with my rating. There are some scenes that are just like, they tickle a fancy of mine. They hit this color scheme that I really like. They do all this cool stuff. There's some scenes that are just like bottom of the barrel. I don't really want to watch this. I would have skipped through it. And there's so like, it's such a mixed bag with that I don't know where to land it. But I'm thinking 6. I'm gonna give it 6 multiverses here.
6 multiverses. I'm honestly thinking about moving up to 8 rather than going down. Just because of like, I mean, there's just 1 or 2 scenes in this movie that are some of the best in the MCU. This is one of my favorite MCU movies now. And we left it, one of our friends, Noah, who is a 10 times bigger MCU fan than I am, absolutely loves all of them and loves watching them.
Yeah.
This is his new favorite one.
Really?
He walked out and he's like, that could have been the best one I've ever seen. So people are really enjoying it. It has a high Rotten Tomatoes score for audiences and critics. For how much our audience felt like they really weren't into it.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that, honestly, for the work Sam Raimi put in.
Me too. I would love to see Sam Raimi come back and do more with Doctor Strange.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think the scenes that hit for me, the ones that were high up, they were like, 9, 10 multiverses out of 10. They were like really good scenes, and honestly, just keep being able to do that within the universe, I think would be really cool.
I agree. Yeah, there were certain scenes where I want to give it 10
Yeah.
out of 10, but it's just I got to put it in the rest of the movie, so it's about a 7 or an 8.
Yeah.
But guys, go check this movie out. It's awesome. It's crazy. It's fun. If you're not a big horror movie fan, or you're afraid maybe to take your kids to this, definitely look into it because it would have scared me.
Yeah, no, it would definitely scare you as a kid,
Yeah.
And we didn't go through an entire, non-spoiler review for you to not check it out. So definitely do check it out.
Yeah, definitely do go to the theaters, check this out. It's making a ton of money. I'm sure it'll be in the theater for another month. So we got time.
But either way, in the meantime, enjoy your coffee and enjoy the movie.
Yeah, have a good one.